All right, ready for this? Today we are going deep into Mel Robbins's "Let Them" theory.
Oh, yeah.
This book, it really claims to like totally change your relationships, help you like find your power again.
Yeah.
And so we're going right to the source, you know. We've got excerpts straight from the book.
Awesome.
And believe me, there's like some real gems in here. We're going to uncover them.
Yeah, I'm excited to dig in.
So are you ready to figure out how to like stop letting other people's, actions and opinions like run your life?
Oh, absolutely. That's something I think we all struggle with, right?
Yeah.
To some extent.
Yeah, totally.
And what I think is so interesting about this book is that, Robbins doesn't just give you this like fluffy advice.
Right.
It's like she backs it up with science,
I love that.
like real psychology,
Cool.
neuroscience,
Yeah, yeah.
which like makes it way more believable, I think.
It's not just like what to do. It's like, why should we do this, right?
Exactly.
Okay, so let's start with this like basic idea, right?
Yeah.
So Robbins is saying that like you can't control what other people think or say or do.
Right.
And trying to like control them, all that does is make you stressed and frustrated. Have you ever felt that? Like where you're just like spinning your wheels trying to get somebody to change, you know?
Oh, all the time.
Or like force a situation to go the way you want it.
Absolutely. And Robbins uses this like brilliant analogy. She talks about a seesaw, right?
Oh, okay.
So imagine you're like holding on to one end of the seesaw
Yeah.
and you're like desperately trying to keep it down.
Right.
You're putting all your weight, all your energy into it, but you're exhausted and like nothing's really changing.
Yeah.
You're stuck.
Stuck. Yeah.
That's what it's like trying to control other people.
Okay, yeah, I can totally see that.
Yeah.
So like how do we get off this seesaw?
Well, that's where the whole let them thing comes in.
Okay.
It's about like pushing off the ground, on that seesaw. You release the weight, you rise above it all, and you get your balance back. It's about accepting that you can't force someone to change or to like agree with you or to behave how you want them to.
Because I'll let them is like recognizing that like, okay, I have power over how I react to this, but not over their choices.
Right.
It's a big shift,
It is.
but it's only half of it, right?
Yeah,
There's the let me piece too.
exactly. So let them frees you up to focus on let me, which is all about taking ownership of what you can control, right?
Yeah.
So that's your actions, your reactions, your choices. It's about like directing your energy towards building the life you want
Yeah.
instead of trying to, manage everybody else's.
Okay, I'm starting to see how this like ties together.
Yeah.
So let's like get into an example, right?
Okay.
Robbins talks about like being on social media and she sees like a bunch of her friends on this weekend trip
Right.
without her.
Classic.
Yeah, and I think we've all had that feeling like, wait, what? Why wasn't I invited?
Totally. It stings.
Yeah.
Like for sure.
Yep.
And her like initial reaction is so relatable, right?
Uh-huh.
She like spirals into self-doubt.
Oh, yeah.
She's wondering like, did I do something wrong?
Totally.
Or like, are my friends mad at me?
Yeah.
But then she kind of catches herself.
Right.
And she remembers like, wait, I can't control whether or not they invited me, right?
Yeah.
That's their choice. And that's the let them in action.
So instead of being stuck in that, like, why wasn't I invited spiral,
Right.
she shifts to, like, what she can control. So tell me more about that.
Yeah. So she realizes that she has been like working so much lately
Yeah.
that she, maybe hasn't been a great friend herself.
Yeah.
So she decides, okay, let me take responsibility for that. Let me be more proactive about reaching out and nurturing my friendships. Let me create the kind of social life I want.
It's such a simple, like, mindset shift.
It is.
But it, like, totally changes her experience.
It does.
So instead of feeling like, oh, I'm a victim.
Right.
She's empowered to, like, take action.
Yeah.
So it sounds like let them and let me, they, like, work together.
They do.
You let go of what you can't control, and then that frees you up to, like, focus your energy on what you can.
Exactly.
Uh-huh.
And that kind of leads us to another key part of the whole let them theory, managing stress.
Ooh, yeah.
So think about all those like little everyday annoyances
Uh-huh.
that totally hijack your mood and just like drain your energy.
Right.
Like the slow cashier, the traffic jam, the person who cuts you off in line,
Oh, yeah.
all those things.
Yeah.
Robbins is saying that a lot of our stress, it comes from trying to control things that are like completely out of our hands.
Oh, yeah, for sure. It's like, I feel like we have this illusion.
Right.
Like that we can control everything.
Yeah,
And then when things don't go according to plan, we freak out.
exactly. And this is where like the science comes in.
Okay.
Did you know that emotions are basically just these like chemical bursts that like fade in 90 seconds if we don't like react to them.
Wait, really? Just
Yeah.
90 seconds?
It's true. But the thing is, when we get like caught up in the story, the blame game,
Yeah.
the like why me drama, we actually make those bad feelings last longer.
Oh.
It's like throwing fuel on a fire that would have like naturally gone out on its own.
Okay, that is mind-blowing. So how does let them help us in those moments when we're like about to lose it over something small?
Well, Robbins suggests using let them as like a mental off switch
Okay.
for your stress response. So let's say you're stuck in traffic
Uh-huh.
and you feel that like frustration coming up.
Yeah.
Instead of letting it like take over, you can just say to yourself, let them drive slowly. Let them create this traffic jam. It's not in my control.
So you're basically taking yourself out of the equation, like emotionally. You're like
Yeah.
acknowledging the situation, but you're choosing not to like engage with it on that level. So
Exactly.
you're just letting it be. And then like shifting your focus to something that is in your control.
Exactly. And that might be like putting on your favorite music,
Yeah.
listening to a podcast, or even just like taking some deep breaths and, focusing on the present moment. It's about like finding that peace within yourself, no matter what's going on around you.
I'm feeling calmer just thinking about it.
Right.
But like, let's be honest, let them probably feels way harder in those really tricky relationships.
Oh, yeah, for sure.
Like with family or friends or like romantic partners.
Right. Yeah,
Those are the situations where like things get really emotional.
for sure.
And it's not so easy to just like let things be.
Absolutely. And that's where Robbins' idea of frame of reference comes in.
Okay.
So it's about understanding where someone is coming from, even if you like totally disagree with them.
Okay.
It's about like cultivating empathy and trying to see the world through their eyes.
So it's less about trying to change their perspective
Right.
and more about like understanding it.
Exactly.
I like that. Can you give me an example?
Yeah. So Robbins tells this story about her own mom who like did not approve of her husband at first.
Okay.
And like it hurt Robbins, it angered her. But then she tried to see it from her mom's perspective, right?
Okay.
Like her mom was probably worried about her daughter moving far away,
Oh, yeah.
feared losing that connection.
So even though her mom's reaction was hard,
Right.
she could see that it wasn't about being controlling.
Right.
It was about like expressing love and concern.
Yeah.
Just maybe in like a slightly wrong way.
Exactly. And by understanding her mom's frame of reference, Robbins could let go of some of that resentment and like build a bridge of understanding.
Yeah.
This
This is a good reminder that even when people's like actions or words seem hurtful, there's often a deeper reason behind them.
Right.
It's not always personal.
It's not.
It's just their way of like navigating the world
Yeah.
based on their own experiences and fears.
Exactly. And sometimes those fears manifest in ways that feel a lot like, well, a temper tantrum.
Oh, tell me about it. We've all met those like grown-ups
Yeah?
who act like emotional children.
Right.
Like they use the silent treatment, guilt trips, passive-aggressive comments.
All tactics.
All the tactics, just trying to like manipulate the situation.
Robbins is very clear on this. It's not your job to manage their reactions.
Right.
You can't control how they behave, but you can control how you respond to it.
Right.
And sometimes the best response is to just let them have their tantrum.
So it's like you're refusing to like engage in the drama.
Right.
You're setting a boundary
Exactly.
and saying, I'm not getting sucked into this.
Remember what we said about emotions being like those chemical bursts?
Yeah.
Well, if you don't like fuel the fire with your own reactions, it
Yeah.
will eventually burn itself out.
Yeah.
It might get messy, but it's their storm to weather.
So let them becomes this like protective shield.
Yeah.
That lets you detach from their like emotional immaturity
Exactly.
and keep your own peace. And it's a powerful way to like set boundaries, even with the people we're closest to.
It is.
Yeah.
It's about realizing that you can't control how other people feel or react,
Right.
but you could choose how you respond. And that choice, that sense of agency, that's what really empowers you to create healthier, more balanced relationships.
Yeah.
Now, this next part, I think it's especially relevant today. The whole battle with comparison,
Oh, yeah.
especially with social media. Everywhere you look, there's someone who seems to be, doing it better, having it all, living the dream life.
It never ends. It's relentless.
It is.
And it's so easy to get like sucked into that.
Yeah, totally.
You feel inadequate, envious.
Right. So how do we deal with that? Robbins encourages us to see other people's success not as a threat, but as inspiration.
Okay.
So instead of feeling defeated, we can say, okay, let them show me what's possible. Let them be my guide to achieving my own goals.
So instead of comparison like paralyzing us,
Right.
we can use it as fuel
Exactly.
to push ourselves forward.
Yeah, it's about shifting your focus from like what you lack to what you can create.
I like that.
Yeah.
So speaking of creating, let's talk about friendships. Adult friendships. They can be tough, right?
Oh, yeah.
Life gets busy, people move away, priorities change. It's hard to maintain those connections.
It's true. And Robbins actually breaks down like the science of friendship into 3 key things:
Okay.
proximity, timing, and energy. And when one or more of those is off, friendships just naturally kind of fade.
Right.
It's not always personal. It's just life. You
It's
know?
just how things go.
Right.
Yeah. So if you and a friend don't live in the same city anymore, or
Yeah.
your like life stages are super different,
Right.
it's going to take a lot more work to maintain that.
It does. And sometimes even with the best intentions, the energy just isn't there anymore. And that's where let them comes in again. It's about accepting that friendships, they have a lifespan too.
Yeah.
And that's okay.
So it's about like letting go of the guilt or the
Yeah.
pressure to keep it going.
Right.
When it's really not doing either person any good anymore. And then let me focus on the friendships that do bring me joy.
Exactly. And let me also be open to creating new connections, even if it feels a little awkward at first.
Right.
Because Robbins emphasizes that, like, making new friends as an adult, it takes being proactive. It's about putting yourself out there, having those sometimes clumsy conversations and being open to unexpected connections.
It's like they say, the magic happens outside of your comfort zone.
Precisely. And speaking of stepping outside our comfort zones, let's talk about how to, like, influence other people's behavior.
Oh, yeah.
Without all that pressure and frustration. I mean, we all have those people, right? Partners, friends, family, who we wish would change their habits or make different choices.
Oh, totally.
Yeah.
Like maybe your partner has some unhealthy habits you'd love for them to quit.
Right.
Or a friend just keeps making decisions that, like, aren't good for them. It's natural to want to help,
It is.
to guide them,
Yeah,
But we all know that pressuring someone to change almost never works.
it doesn't.
In fact, it usually makes it worse.
And there's actually a scientific reason for that. When we feel pressured, our survival instincts kick in.
Oh, wow.
And we resist change even harder.
Mm.
It, like, triggers this threat response in the brain, and that's not exactly helpful for making good decisions.
Right. It's like we go into like fight or flight mode,
Yeah.
even if the threat is just like someone nagging us about eating better or working out.
Exactly. So instead of approaching these conversations with, like, pressure and judgment,
Yeah.
Robbins suggests a way better strategy, the ABC loop,
Okay.
which stands for apologize, ask, back off, celebrate, and change.
Okay. I like it.
Yeah,
It sounds so much more like compassionate and collaborative.
it is.
Tell me more.
Okay, so let's unpack this ABC loop. It starts with A, apologize. So think about those past conversations you've had where you maybe pressured or judged the person. This step is about acknowledging that and creating a clean slate for a better conversation.
So it's like saying, hey, I realize I've been nagging you about this.
Yeah.
And I'm sorry. I want to understand like where you're coming from.
Exactly. It's about showing, like, humility and respect,
Right.
which can really disarm the person
Yeah.
and make them more open to what you have to say.
So it's about shifting from like judging them to being curious.
Exactly. Then comes ask,
Okay.
where you use open-ended questions to kind of gently guide them towards, like, self-reflection. Remember, you're not telling them what to do. You're encouraging them to, like, explore their own motivations, their own, like, roadblocks.
So Robbins talks about the 5 whys here, right?
Yes. It's about asking why
Yeah.
5 times in a row to really dig deep into, like, the root cause of their behavior resistance, like peeling back the layers of an onion.
Okay, I see how that could be powerful. So instead of focusing on the like surface behavior,
Yeah.
you're helping them uncover like the deeper beliefs or maybe the emotional blocks that might be driving it.
Let's say you're trying to understand why your partner hates going to the gym. You could start by asking, why don't you enjoy exercising?
Okay.
And then, based on their answer, keep asking why to uncover those deeper layers. Maybe they had a bad experience with sports as a kid. Or They associate exercise with punishment.
So by using the 5 whys, you're helping them connect with their own reasons for wanting to change,
Right.
which is like way stronger than any pressure you could put on them.
Exactly. Now, here's the interesting part. The B in the ABC loop stands for back off.
Hmm.
Might sound counterintuitive, but Robbins is really insistent that giving the person space is crucial for change to happen.
So you're saying even after having that like honest conversation,
Yeah.
we need to resist the urge to like keep reminding them,
Yeah.
nagging them,
Right.
or like checking in on their progress.
Think of it this way. You planted the seed, you watered it, and now you got to let it grow.
Yeah.
Right? Constant hovering, reminders, it's just going to like stifle growth. Giving them space, it lets them process things, come to their own conclusions, and feel ownership over their choices.
It's like learning to ride a bike.
Yeah.
You can give someone all the instructions and support in the world,
Right.
but they'll never get it until they like grab the handlebars and experience that like wobbly, exhilarating freedom.
I love that analogy. And that brings us to the C's. Celebrate and change.
Okay.
It's about acknowledging any progress they make, even if it's tiny,
Yeah.
and reinforcing those positive steps. It's also about like modeling the behavior you want to see.
So if your partner finally starts taking walks a few times a week, you celebrate their effort. You say, hey, I'm really proud of you for sticking with this.
Exactly.
And you make sure you're walking the walk too,
Yeah.
showing them like the benefits of a healthy lifestyle.
Exactly. Robbins talks about the power of influence.
Yeah.
When we see someone we care about making those good changes, it inspires us. It's that ripple effect of positive energy.
Yeah.
It's way stronger than nagging or lecturing. Now, what are your thoughts on Robbins' approach to supporting loved ones who are facing like really serious stuff?
Yeah.
Like addiction or mental health issues.
Yeah.
It's a bit more controversial, isn't it?
It is a really tough area.
Yeah.
And I can see how some people might not be comfortable with her stance on letting people like face the consequences of their choices.
Right.
She argues that sometimes the kindest thing you can do is to step back and let them hit rock bottom. It's not about being mean or abandoning them.
Right.
It's about realizing that enabling them is only delaying their healing.
She's basically saying that sometimes hitting rock bottom is like the thing that makes real change happen. But I do wonder about like the ethics of this, especially with things like addiction. It's tricky, isn't it?
It is. She tells a story about her husband's restaurant business. It was struggling financially. And he was tempted to like ask his brother for a loan.
Right.
But his brother was like smart. He said no.
Wow.
And it forced her husband to face reality,
Yeah.
make tough choices, and ultimately he saved himself. Tough love for sure.
It is. And while I get the principle of like letting someone experience those consequences,
Yeah.
I think it's important to say that there are situations where let them might not be the right move or the most caring approach.
I agree. There's a difference between letting someone learn from their mistakes
Yeah.
and putting them in danger.
Right.
It's important to think about how bad the consequences could be
Yeah.
and if the person can even handle them.
Exactly. And Robbins does emphasize the importance of boundaries,
Yeah.
especially with money.
Right.
It's about offering help, but with clear conditions.
Yeah.
Making sure your support isn't enabling them or stopping them from seeing what's really going on.
Have you ever been in a situation where you had to set those boundaries with someone you loved?
I have. And it's never fun. But I've learned that setting those boundaries, it's not about controlling them.
Yeah.
It's about protecting yourself
Yeah.
and letting them be responsible for their own choices.
Right.
It's about finding that balance between offering support,
Yeah.
and letting them fall.
Yeah.
Sometimes the fall is what they need
It can be.
to come back stronger.
So moving away from those like intense personal situations, how does Robbins apply the let them theory to, dating and relationships?
Well, she wants us to be picky, recognize those red flags,
Hmm.
and remember that if you're confused, it's a clear sign someone's not really interested or they're not available. She has this great line, if they like you, you'll know. If they don't, you'll be confused.
It's about trusting your gut, knowing your worth.
Sure.
And not settling for anything less than clear, consistent, respectful treatment. It's so easy to get caught up in the chase,
Yeah.
trying to figure out those mixed signals, or convince ourselves that someone's more into us than they are.
Right. She reminds us that we don't have to play those games. We can let them show their true colors, through their actions, and then we can decide if it's worth our time.
Right.
And she's big on compatibility, too.
Yeah.
Not just, like, shared interests,
Right.
but, like, values, life goals, and a willingness to, like, work together.
Exactly. Because relationships thrive when both people want it to work
Yeah.
and are willing to put in the effort.
And even the best relationships, they have their tough moment.
Oh, for sure.
Right.
Yeah.
So for those times, Robbins suggests, you guessed it, the ABC loop.
Yes.
To approach those difficult conversations with, like, kindness and understanding, it's about creating a safe space for open dialogue
Yeah.
where both people feel heard.
She even talks about deal breakers, you know?
Encouraging people to really think about if the issues in their relationship are fixable, or if it means one or both people have to compromise their core values or their life goals.
It's about recognizing that sometimes walking away is the best thing,
Yeah.
even if it hurts.
It's true. Now, we can't talk about relationships without talking about heartbreak.
Right.
It's one of the hardest things we go through. But Robbins actually gives some really practical advice for navigating that pain
Yeah.
and finding your way back.
Yeah. She encourages us to let ourselves grieve,
Yeah.
to lean on friends and family,
Right.
and to like focus on self-care, things that nourish our body, mind, and spirit.
Exactly. It's about letting yourself feel the pain without judgment and giving yourself the time and space to heal.
She also reminds us that heartbreak can be like a catalyst for growth, a chance to like learn from what happened and to come out of it stronger, wiser, and even more ready for real love.
Yeah, I like that. And, throughout the whole book, Robbins keeps coming back to this idea of building a loving and strong relationship with ourselves.
Yeah.
It's like a thread that runs through everything.
Right.
She reminds us that we've spent way too long trying to control what we can't, trying to please everyone else and ignoring our own needs and wants.
Right.
She's challenging us to shift our focus inward, to embrace who we really are, and to build a life that reflects our deepest values and dreams.
She has this great metaphor. She compares life to a sky that's always changing, right?
Yeah. Sometimes it's clear and blue, other times it's cloudy, or there's a storm brewing.
We can't control the weather,
Right.
but we can choose how it affects us.
Exactly. It's a powerful reminder that life throws curveballs. We can't control everything that happens, but we can choose how we react, how we adapt, how we navigate those challenges. And that choice, that sense of agency, that's what ultimately empowers us to create a life that's meaningful and fulfilling. And I think this leads us perfectly to, like, Robbins' core message, wouldn't you say?
It really feels like that's the heart of Let Them. This idea that the most important relationship we have is the one with ourselves.
Yes,
It's like everything else flows from that.
absolutely.
Okay.
And Robbins asks this question, what if, instead of trying to change the world, we focused on changing ourselves? What if we took all that energy we waste on worrying, complaining, and trying to control things we can't, and put it towards something that truly matters to us?
I love that. It's about taking back our power and focusing it inward
Yes.
on our own growth, on nurturing our own dreams, on building a life that truly feels right for us.
It's about recognizing that you are worthy of love, respect, and the freedom to pursue your dreams without needing anyone's permission. And so much of that comes from, like, letting go of the need for external validation, wouldn't you say?
Oh, absolutely. I think we've all been there. Worrying what other people will think, letting their opinions control our choices, or holding ourselves back because we're afraid of judgment.
It's exhausting.
Huh.
And Robbins reminds us that we can't control what other people think. We can't please everyone, and we shouldn't try to.
Right.
It's about giving yourself permission to break free from those invisible chains of, like, societal expectations or family pressures that have been holding you back. It's about stepping into your own truth, even if it ruffles some feathers.
It's like finally allowing yourself to be fully no apologies. And I think that takes real courage.
It does, but the rewards are huge, Robbins says. Robbins says that, like, real freedom and happiness come from building a life that makes you proud.
Yeah.
It doesn't matter what anyone else thinks.
Right.
It's about, making your actions match your values
Yeah.
and creating a life that feels real and important to you.
And that's where Let Them comes in again. We can let them think whatever they want. We can't control their opinions, but we can stop trying to please them. It's like a weight lifted off.
It is.
And then suddenly we can breathe,
Yes.
move more confidently,
Truly.
create without those limitations. It's pretty amazing. Now, it's important to say that Robbins isn't saying to become like selfish or not care about other people.
Right. That's a good point. It's not about shutting people out or just thinking about yourself.
Yeah, it's actually the opposite.
It is. It's about like having self-respect and self-love.
Right.
And then you can show up in your relationships as your true self.
Yeah. Yeah.
You're not coming from a place of neediness or, insecurity anymore.
It's like that oxygen mask thing they tell you on airplanes.
Yeah. You got to put on your own mask first before you can help anyone else.
Exactly.
Taking care of yourself, emotionally, mentally, spiritually. That's what lets you show up for the people you love with more energy, compassion, and strength.
It's a reminder that self-care isn't selfish. It's how we create positive change everywhere.
Exactly. And as we wrap up this deep dive into Mel Robbins' Let Them theory,
Yeah.
I want to leave you with a question to think about. What's one area in your life where let them could make a big difference? What would it look like to really embrace let me?
Maybe it's a relationship that's stressing you out, or a goal you've been putting off because you're afraid of what people will think, or maybe it's just that negative voice in your head.
Whatever it is, I encourage you to try out let them and let me.
Yeah.
See how they change things for you.
And if you want to explore these ideas even more, definitely check out Mel Robbins' book. It's called The Let Them Theory. It's full of insights, stories, and practical tips for building better relationships.
Starting with the most important one, the one with yourself.
So until our next deep dive, keep exploring, keep asking questions, and keep letting go of anything that's not serving you.
And remember, you have the power to create the life you want.
Thanks for joining us. See you next time.
That real freedom and happiness come from living a life that makes you proud, regardless of what anyone else thinks. It's about making your actions match your values and creating a life that feels real and important to you.
And that's where let them comes back in, right? We can let them think whatever they want. We can't control their opinions, but we can let go of the need to please them.
Exactly. And when we free ourselves from that burden, we open up so much space for joy, for creativity, for authentic self-expression.
It's like a weight has been lifted, and suddenly we can breathe more freely, we can move more confidently, we can create without those limitations.
Yeah.
It's pretty amazing. Now, it's important to say that Robbins isn't saying to become selfish or indifferent to others.
Right. That's a good point.
Right.
Yeah, it's not about shutting people out or just thinking about yourself.
It's actually opposite.
It is. It's about having self-respect and self-love.
Right.
And then you can show up in your relationships as your true self.
Yeah.
You're not coming from a place of neediness or, insecurity anymore.
It's like that oxygen mask thing they tell you on airplanes.
Yeah. You got to put on your own mask first before you can help anyone else.
Exactly.
Taking care of yourself, emotionally, mentally, spiritually.
Oh, yeah.
That's what lets you show up for the people you love with more energy, compassion, and strength.
It's a reminder that self-care isn't selfish.
It's not?
It's how we create positive change everywhere.
Exactly.
In all these areas of our lives.
Yeah. And, as we wrap up our deep dive into Mel Robbins' Let Them theory, I want to leave you with a question to think about.
Okay.
What's one area in your life where let them could make a big difference? What would it look like to really embrace let me?
Maybe it's a relationship that's stressing you out. A goal you've been putting off because you're afraid of what people will think. Or maybe it's just that negative voice in your head, that inner critic.
Whatever it is, I encourage you to try out let them and let me.
Yeah.
See how they change things for you.
And if you want to explore these ideas even more, definitely check out Mel Robbins' book, The Let Them Theory.
Yes.
It's full of insights, stories, and practical tips for building better relationships.
Starting with the most important one, the one with yourself.
So until our next deep dive, keep exploring, keep asking questions, and keep letting go of anything that's not serving you.
And remember, you have the power to create the life you want.
Thanks for joining us. We'll see you next time.